afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Wednesday 1 o'clock webinar. So we are really excited for our upcoming guest speaker. Today will Desi Arnaz, who's also speaking at our investor retreat for 2022. I hope you're there. If you haven't seen any emails, make sure to reach out to us. I'll get you all the details. He'll be covering how to protect and grow your IRA as a private lender. So I'm pretty excited about this topic. This is a very hot topic. Lots of clients are always wondering how they can protect their assets, or especially they're doing loans. So he's going to cover some definitely in-depth best practices that you can adopt to do that. All right. So before we get started, I just want to give you some little background if you're new and it's your first time viewing one of our workshops about NuView and about self-directed IRAs. So NuView's been in business since 2003. We custody over 15,000 client assets. So there's different types of IRAs. So you have your SEP, your IRA, traditional Roth, and then you also have SEP IRAs. I mentioned that one. Solo 401ks, HSAs, ESAs. Those are the different types of accounts that most clients open. We custody over 2 billion under client assets. So that's the value so far, and we're still growing. What is a self-directed IRA? So a self-directed IRA is a little different. You have most companies like Merrill Lynch or Fidelity, they limit you to the stock market, stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. But in a self-directed IRA, you can own other types of assets that are like real estate, mortgage notes. You can do private lending, tax liens, cryptocurrency. Those are probably the most common types of assets you can hold in your IRA. So I mentioned the different types of IRAs here. You have your personal plans. These have smaller contribution limits, like $6,000 you can contribute each year. Then you have your employer plans. They usually have higher contribution limits, like your solo 401ks, SEP IRAs, simple IRAs. This employer plans are great if you're self-employed. You can do a solo or a SEP because you can contribute up to $58,000 a year to those plans. And then the Roth 401k, it's just like a solo 401k, except for you're making post-tax contributions. These are specialized plans, your health savings account and your education savings account. So health savings accounts are great. They're tax deferred going in, making those contributions, and they are tax-free coming out as well. A lot of people don't know that you can use these plans to self-direct into alternative investments. And education savings accounts are a great way of saving for college for your children or grandchildren. All right, so I gave some examples earlier of what you can invest in. These are the most common types of assets we see clients investing in. Real estate's number one. Then your promissory notes, whether secured or unsecured notes. And then you have your cryptocurrency. Those are pretty common now, especially since crypto has been ticking upwards in the past couple of years. So more people are getting involved in cryptocurrency that we're seeing. And then you can also do other things like private entities, LLCs, joint ventures, any pre-IPO type companies, anything that's not publicly traded can be held in a self-directed IRA. All right, so once again, Desi Arnaz is our guest speaker today. He'll be covering some topics on private lending. So I'm really excited to bring him on. Hey, Desi, you there?
Yes, I am here. I was still muted.
Awesome. Well, we're so happy to have you. Our audience definitely loves to learn some tips and tricks that I know you can provide when it comes to notes and private lending. You have some great experience in there. So I'm going to let you go ahead and take it over from here.
Well, thank you, Brian. I do appreciate that. And it's really great to be here. I really appreciate NuView. I have directed many of my partners and clients to get in touch with you guys and to move their funds over to you guys. And they're all pleased, so that's a good thing. I like that. NuView is a good company. And I appreciate having an opportunity to share what I'm sharing today. So Brian, I have the ability to share my screen. I have a little PowerPoint I'd like to take a few minutes and go through, if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it. 100%. It is all yours. Take it away. I'd love to see what you're going to teach us today.
All right, sounds good. Well, for me, I'd like to just start with just kind of sharing my story, my personal story a little bit. Back in 2013, I found out about note investing. As a matter of fact, it was on the 4th of July, 2013, which I refer to that day as my personal Independence Day. because that day things changed for me so dramatically that it's just a special day, right? In hindsight, you can tell what the special days are, but when you're going through them, you don't know. This is a really important day. But when you look back after a year or two, you say, that was a really important day. And I think that today, for some people, it's going to be a really important day. And I hope that December 1st, 2021 is a life-changing, game-changing day for the people that hear this message today. So I found out about mortgage note investing in 2013, as I said, and immediately I realized that for more than 30 years, I had been on the wrong side of the table. Because you see, I had started investing in real estate back in 1982 when I used to own a Century 21 franchise. And so I would invest in real estate as a landlord or as a property flipper. Those are the two things that I did. And I did it because, not because I love real estate, but just because it's what I did. You know, I had to put my money to work someplace. And so I put it to work in real estate. I did take some ventures off into the stock market and into commodities, lost a little money really quickly and realized I need to stick with something that I understand. Like Warren Buffett says, you invest in what you understand, right? So I understood real estate, so I just stuck with real estate. But what I didn't know until 2013 is that I could own someone's mortgage. And so I'm going to be talking about that today and about how you can position yourself if you have money to invest. You can position yourself to be the bank and to benefit like a bank. And so that's kind of what has happened for me. And it's happening for lots of people that I've been introducing into this space for the past 3 years. And since that time, I've gone on to not only just grow my own portfolio to a sizable amount, but I've also gone on to help other people start to build their portfolios and at least add notes into their portfolio. And I'll share with you guys today how we use notes and how you can use notes to grow and protect your retirement account, whether it's an IRA or a health savings plan, it doesn't matter. That's the beautiful thing about it. Whichever type of retirement or qualified plan you are under, you can use it to do what I'm going to be sharing with you guys today. Specifically, Brian, I'm going to be talking about private lending. And if anybody out there is not familiar with private lending, here's what it basically is. It's when a private individual provides funding for, in my case here, a real estate deal, right? That's what I'm talking about today. Either a real estate, something to do with real estate. And so if I was trying to do a real estate deal, or if an investor is trying to do a real estate deal, they have a choice. If they don't have the cash themselves, if they're not liquid, they can go to the bank, maybe Wells Fargo or something, borrow money to buy the real estate. Or if they have a wealthy Uncle Mike, right, they can go to Uncle Mike. Uncle Mike can finance that real estate deal for them. And Uncle Mike can earn the interest that would have gone to Wells Fargo. And that's what I'm talking about here today. See, it's a win-win for everyone involved. And so as a private lender, you're going to get good returns. Now, if someone out there is saying, hey, I want to make 25, I want to make 30% ROI, or I'm not interested, then you guys can go ahead and drop off right now, okay? Because we're not talking about those kinds of returns. Those are crazy good returns. I mean, every now and then you'll get a little wood on the ball on a note deal or on a private lending deal, and you'll make a really high return like that. But that's not the game plan. The game plan is to make a really fair and reasonable return consistently. That's the key to creating real wealth and long-term wealth that you can count on. So you're going to make a good return when you invest in as a private lender. You're also going to have passive income. You know, as I mentioned, if Uncle Mike is lending money to you to do a deal and you're making interest payments every month to Uncle Mike, those interest payments represent passive income. He doesn't have to get up to go to work to do that and to make that money come into his bank account. All he does is he strokes a pen, strokes out a check, gives it to you, and then money starts to flow into his bank account month after month after month until you pay him off, which is really, really nice. And it's also low risk. And I know that a lot of people equate risk and return, right? If you want to have low risk, then you got to give up on the return. But if you're willing to take higher risk, then you can get higher returns. Well, it's not necessarily true when you are on the other side of the table, as you're going to see in just a few minutes. As a banker, when you are the bank, you can get high returns and low risk. And what makes note investing low risk, and especially as a private lender, is that you have something called collateral. Now, you all know what collateral is, right? Collateral is something that the lender can take from the borrower if the borrower doesn't pay. That's how it works. And what I'm talking about today is real estate. And so you don't get collateral when you put your money into the stock market. You don't get collateral when you put your money into cryptocurrencies or other things like that, right? But you do get collateral when you are in the lending business. And this is a really important point that I'd like to make too. You get to leverage the expertise of experts. You know, when I was flipping houses back in the 80s, I had a whole crew that worked for me, and we would go from house to house to house. We were good at it. We could cookie cutter those things out. We had a plan and a system that just worked like clockwork. Well, we were getting financed initially by my own money. And then later, as we did more transactions, I started using some bank funds and a credit line that was given to me. And then I realized, you know, I don't really like working with banks, because every single time you need money at a bank, they start that whole process over again. You got to come back in, apply again, and go through this whole thing. And so I started talking with private individuals about funding my property flips. And I found people that had retirement money and cash, and they would fund my property flips, but they would make money on my deals. They could literally leverage off of my expertise, make profits off my deal. Their profits are called interest, right, on the money that they put into the deal. So they're making profits off the deal without having to know how to flip a house, without having to pick up a hammer, but yet they are still profiting from my expertise. And that's a biggie, guys, because as a lender, you can be in all kinds of opportunities, and you don't have to become the expert in any of them. You can still profit from them, and that's a powerful place to be, okay? So here's the point. When you're a private lender, you are the bank to the borrower, right? And you're in the money business. I don't want you to think that you're in, even though you're lending on real estate, you're not in the real estate business. You're in the money business, just like banks are. And I can tell you from personal experience, I learned in 2013 that the money is in the money business. That's just the reality of it. That's where the money is. And that's why banks are there, right? Because they have come to learn that that's where the money is. Now, I just want to mention that I host a group of investors, and we meet online at a place called the AmericanWealthBuildersNetwork.com. And I just wanted to put that in there. If you guys, it's free. It's just investors. We all get together. We talk about investing in different asset classes, not just in notes, but in all types of asset classes. And I just want to invite anybody that's interested to just get over to AmericanWealthBuildersNetwork.com, join, and just participate, you know. So let me then take a couple minutes here and show you guys the 3 ways that you can invest as a private lender. And I'm going to walk you through a case study that's going to help you understand it a little bit better. The first way is as a direct lender. And that is the example that I just gave you a couple minutes ago with Uncle Mike, right? As a direct lender, here's what happens. You actually loan money. You lend the money. You actually structure that whole deal. You get to set it up. You write the terms of that transaction. You decide if it's going to be a 5-year loan or a 10-year or a 20 or a 30. It's up to you. You decide what the interest rate will be. You decide if there's a prepayment penalty or if there's going to be a balloon payment due on it. Literally, you architect that entire transaction. So it's a good thing. You also determine what the payments, how much the payments will be, whether they will be interest only or principal and interest, or principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. I mean, you get to decide all of that, when those payments are due, how much of a late charge there would be if those payments are not paid within a certain window of time. You control all of that, right? Because as I like to say, the golden rule is absolutely at play when you're in private lending. And the golden rule is he who has the gold makes the rules, okay? And so that's what I want you to know. You have the gold. And so you get to make the rules. You get to determine what the qualifications would be for someone to borrow money. from you. What are you looking for? Do you want to see that they have a certain credit score or a certain amount of time on the job or a certain number of years of experience in that asset class, whatever it is they're doing? That's up to you. And you control all of the documentation and the timing of everything that goes on because it's literally your show. It's up to you. Okay, so that's the first way that you can invest as a private lender. You can write a check and orchestrate that whole transaction. And that's what most people think of as private lenders when they think of lending money. But there is another way. There are two more ways, as a matter of fact, and I'm going to share those with you. The second way that you can invest as a private lender is this way. You can actually invest as a note investor. So now let's take a look at what that means. As a note investor, you're not the person that originated the note, the mortgage. Right? You didn't create it. Someone else, a different lender created it, and then you bought it from them. You step into their shoes and purchase their position. Now, this is the part that was kind of new to me back in 2013. I didn't realize I could step into Wells Fargo's shoes and purchase the mortgage that Wells Fargo made on my neighbor's house. But I can, okay? That is something that can happen. If you've ever had a mortgage on a piece of real estate and then you get a letter from your lender saying that your loan has been transferred from our company to this new company and moving forward, you should send all your payments to those guys, right? If you've ever got that letter, then your loan was sold. It's simply that way. You didn't have anything to do with it. You didn't have the right to, veto, right? It just happens. It's not up to you. The lender has the right to transfer their interest to another lender. And so as a note investor, you are that other lender that's receiving that document and those documents, and also entitled to receive that cash flow from those mortgages that you do put into your portfolio, which is really a cool thing. So I'm going to show you a case study of a mortgage note that I own. Okay, I call this one the Big Mo because it's in Missouri, right? And I'm just going to walk you through this and why, and you'll see in a minute why, when people understand the private lending sector, you'll see why they get so excited about it. And you're also going to see the opportunity that it really does present to the person who takes the time to really investigate it and learn it. So here is the scenario right here. This is a little house, as you can see, cute little brick house there. The value of this house is $190,000. Now, how do we know that? Well, we have a local real estate agent go out and take a look at it. And that real estate agent gives us their opinion of value based upon what they see. So the real estate agent said this house, he could sell it for $190,000. Okay. The homeowner owed $146,000 to the bank at the time that I stepped into the picture. So if I want to buy that mortgage, that's the balance that would be owed to me if I buy it. These people had monthly payments of about $1,359 each month. They had 22 years left to pay, which means they had been living in that house and making payments for 8 years because this was originally a 30-year loan. Their interest rate was 9.9%, 9.99. And you may be thinking, wow, that's really a high rate. And by today's standards, it is a high rate. But I can remember a time when I used to own a mortgage company, and I remember saying to one of the guys, I don't think we'll ever see rates under 10% again. I was wrong, obviously, thank goodness. But rates were so high at one point that 9.99 was considered a really good rate. Now, these people had some credit challenges, and that's why their rate was a little bit higher than what they could have gotten if they had better credit scores. But that's beside the point. Here is the point. These people have lived in this house for 8 years and they've never missed a payment. Who cares what their credit score is? They pay their mortgage. That's the bottom line, okay? And so they pay their mortgage. So I was able to negotiate to buy this loan from the bank for $128,000. Now remember, the homeowner owes $146,000 to the bank, but yet I was able to pick it up for $128,000. you may be asking the same question that I asked when I first saw this type of scenario. I said, why would the bank sell it for less than what's owed? And the answer, the short answer is, I don't know, but they do. Okay, that's how the industry works. And I didn't know that until I got into the industry, but that's just how it works. That's called a discount. These notes are traded at a discount. It's just how it works. And so don't question it, just go with the flow. So I was able for $128,000, which means that I had an $18,000 discount on that particular mortgage. You see that? I walked in the door with instant equity. Now, for me, that was a new concept because having been a real estate investor where I would buy real estate, I had to wait until the property appreciated in value in order to get equity, or I had to wait until I paid down the balance in order to get equity. Here, I buy the note and I have instant equity. I love that part of it, by the way, just so you know. So I walked in the door with $18,000 in equity the day that I bought the note. That's a good thing. And the fact that I'm collecting interest on that $18,000 at the rate of 9.99%, and I didn't pay one nickel for that $18,000. If you factor that into your financial calculator, you'll see that my $128,000 investment is earning 11.7%. Isn't that good? See, that's a good thing. That's a lot more than banks are paying right now. And it's safe. And the reason that I say it's safe is because these people have lived in their house for 8 years and they've never missed a payment. What? That's pretty safe. Now, of course, they could miss payments. They could lose their jobs. They could get a divorce. They could die. Who knows? But the reality is that up until this point, they've never missed a payment. And so I felt really confident in my abilities there. And here's what I can share with you. When I invest in a note, or you, or anyone invests in a note as a lender, only one of three outcomes will happen. And here they are. One is you'll be paid as agreed. You'll be paid as agreed. In other words, the people will pay you like they said they agreed to pay. Or maybe they'll pay you off early because sometimes people sell their homes to upgrade or downgrade, or they move from one state to another. And so they sell the property. In that case, you get paid off early because you're the bank. Or third, and the thing that most people worry about is this, they don't pay you, okay? And that does happen. And so let's look at all three of these scenarios and you'll see why I love investing in mortgage notes and why I do encourage people to put some of their money into notes, either as a direct lender or as a note investor. And you'll understand this in just a minute. So let's assume these people pay as agreed. So they owe $1,359 a month, right? And they have 22 years left to pay. So if you just do the math, 22 years at $1,359 a month, if they continue to make those monthly payments for 22 years, then they're going to pay me as the note owner $358,000. $358,000. Remember, I only invested $128,000. So that works out to be a whopping 11.7% return per year that I'm getting in this investment vehicle. So, I mean, just let that sink in, okay? I'm earning 11.7%. My money is going to grow to 358. Now, here's just a little aside that I want to just mention to you. I've got $1,359 a month coming in, right? At some point, I'm going to have $100,000, let's just say, in my retirement account because I did this inside an IRA, right? So I'll have $100,000 in my retirement account from the payments that these people have paid me. What if I was to take that $100,000 and go buy another note while they're still paying me? So let's say I buy another note for $100,000 and that note pays me $1,000 a month. So now I've got this note paying me $1,359 a month, plus a new note paying me $1,000 a month into my retirement account. I've got $2,359 coming into my retirement account every single month. When I get to 100,000, couldn't I do that again? You bet I could. You bet. And I do, okay? That's why I said this is life-changing stuff. And before you know it, you'll have two notes paying you $1,000 a month coming in each, plus this one at $1,359 a month, that $128,000 could easily grow to something north of $600,000 using this strategy. I call that the money in motion strategy, and you're going to learn about that. But I digress. Let's get back to the three possible outcomes. One is the person will pay me like they're supposed to, and that's what most people do. 3 out of 4 mortgages, even more than 3 out of 4 mortgages, pays as agreed, right? So, second option, they could pay me off early. This is one of the 3 possible outcomes. They could pay me off early. Now, obviously, we never know when someone is going to pay us off. We're just the bank, you know, and they have 22 years left to pay, and we can't force them to pay us off early. But sometimes people, as I said earlier, sometimes people like to move. They upgrade, they downgrade, they relocate, whatever. And so they pay us off early. So let's just say in this example that 5 years in, these people decide they wanted to move to a new property. And so they put their house up for sale and sell it. Now, for 5 years, they've made payments of $1,359, which means they would have paid me $81,500. That's simple math, 60 payments of $1,359. So they would have paid me already $81,500. But since most of a mortgage payment is what? Interest. If you've ever paid a mortgage, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Most of the mortgage payment is interest, which means profit to me as a lender. Only a small part of it is actual principal to pay down the balance. So after 5 years, these people would still owe me $133,900. Okay, let's call it $134,000. They'll still owe me $134,000 after 5 years. So if you add the $81,500 that I already collected to the $134,000 that they're going to pay me when they sell their house, all total in 5 years, I would have collected $215,400. Let's just call it $215,000 in 5 years on a $128,000 investment. If you put that into your financial calculator, you're going to see that that works out to be a 20.6% return per year on my investment. 20.6%. We thought 11.7 was good. Okay, look at that. That's phenomenal. But I know what you're thinking, Desi. The worst case scenario is people don't pay, right? So let's look at that third and most scary of options if people fail to pay, because that's what everybody worries about, right? Now, remember, I don't have a mortgage payment on this house. I bought this mortgage from the lender. I paid cash, so I don't have any payments to make. First thing that I want you to understand is that, because if these people don't pay me, it's not like I've still got to pay someone else. When I was a property flipper or a landlord, if my tenants didn't pay me, I still had to pay my mortgage because I didn't own those properties outright. I own this note outright. So the first thing that I want you to understand is if they don't pay me, it's not going to burden my family's budget. It's just I won't be collecting $1,359 for the months in which they don't pay. But let's just say after 5 years, these people stop paying. I mean, they've already been paying for 8 years. So let's say they pay for 5 more years and then they stop paying. So as we said earlier, the 5 years that they did pay me, I would have collected $81,500. However, they lost their job, they got a divorce or whatever, they stopped paying. And so if they stop paying, I have the same rights as Wells Fargo or Bank of America has if a person stops paying their mortgage, and you all know what that right is. They have the right to take your house, and so do I. And that's a simple process, by the way. It's simply this. I write a $3,000 or so check to an attorney, a foreclosure attorney. They take it, they go do whatever it is they need to do. They let me know when the foreclosure is done. And at that point, I call a local real estate agent and I say, I just took a house back in foreclosure and I want you to sell it for me. So I called the agent that already told me this house was worth $190,000. That's who I would call. And I'd say, look, I want you to sell it for me. Now, obviously, 5 years in, we don't know if it's still going to be worth 190 or if it's going to be worth more or less, because I don't have a crystal ball. But let's just assume it's still worth 190. And so my agent sells the place for 190. course, they get their commission and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, here's how it's going to look. I would have already collected $81,000 and some change, right? Because they paid before, they paid for 5 years before they defaulted. Then when it gets sold for $190,000. You with me? That means all total, I've collected $271,000 on this transaction. Now, of course, my realtor gets a little bit of that and whatever. So let's say I walk out of this with $260,000. Remember, I only invested $128,000 5 years earlier. That works out to be a 24.4% return on my money. Holy smokes. Think about that. If they pay me like they're supposed to, I earn 11.7. If they pay me off early, I earn 20%. If they don't pay me at all, I earn 24%. Think about that. I mean, those are the only three things that could happen. Either they pay early, they pay as they agree, or they don't pay. That's it. When people owe you money, that's it. There are no other options, okay? So I'm not in a bad position. And in this case, you can see the worst case scenario for me is that they pay as agreed. That's the worst case scenario. They pay as agreed. I mean, that is why banks don't flip houses. Banks understand that the money's not in the real estate business. The money is in the money business. Banks don't flip houses. Banks don't own rentals. They don't go out and say, oh, wow, I'm going to buy that little condo over there and put a tenant in it. You know, they don't do that. They don't do Airbnbs. No. They don't build subdivisions. They don't buy stocks. They don't put their money into cryptocurrency. Banks understand that the money is in the money business. That banks are lenders. And I'm saying to you guys, you are sitting on your retirement money and you're risking it when you don't have to. You can get phenomenal returns safely. As you can see, how safe was I in that example? I'm extremely safe. That property value would have to fall almost 50% before I would be in any jeopardy. You know what I mean? And worst case scenario, if the property value fell, couldn't I just put a tenant in that place and rent it out if I foreclosed on it? I could put a tenant in it and rent it out and be a landlord until the property value recovers. I have that as an option. So it's just such a great way to invest. You see, it's safe and you're the bank in these scenarios. So you get safety, you get cash flow, you get control, you get yields, and you get equity. That's what banks do, and that's why banks do so well. And if you drive through any city in America, you'll see that the tallest buildings in that city with the name across the top, it's usually some bank name. That's because banks are in the money business and the money is in the money business. There's also freedom in the money business because you don't have to deal with tenants and toilets and trash. You don't have to become an expert at stocks, or you don't have to become an expert at crypto or flipping houses or landlording. You are the bank. That's where your freedom is going to come from. And as you can see, you can also earn phenomenal returns. That's the name of the game. Once I understood that, my life changed. I no longer chased properties that I could flip. I no longer looked for properties that I could buy and maybe get a good tenant in there. I just didn't do that anymore. I started looking for deals that I could put together where I could write a check and I could fund that deal. And that's what I share with people, teach people how to do that. And if you're sitting with your retirement funds and you're putting it out into these risky areas, I'd say if that just makes your adrenaline flow, that's good. Then maybe put a little bit of it there, but make sure you put some of this money into some private lending because it gives you so much control. So now let's take a look at the third and final option that I was going to talk about today for putting your money to work in the private lending space. You can invest your money into a fund. A fund is where a group of people put their money together. They hire an expert to manage the money. That expert is usually an expert, not just in money management, but also in some asset class. Now, for example, I manage a fund, a $20 million investment fund, and we invest in mortgage notes. Duh, right? That's what I love. And our fund makes really nice returns. And we share those returns with our investor partners. That's our fund is called the Everly May Real Estate Fund. And you can check that out at the everlymayrealestatefund.com. But you can put your money into a fund. And there are lots of funds out there. It's kind of like putting your money, if you wanted to put money into the stock market, but you don't really understand stocks, you could put your money into a mutual fund, right? And let the fund manager make money for you. It's the same thing. You can do the same thing with notes and with real estate. You can put your money into a fund. So the three things that you can do, you can be a direct lender, you can be a note investor, or you can be a fund investor. And it's really depends on what you want to do. And some people that I work with, some of my partners do all three. Some do only one, some do two. So it really depends on what you want and where you see yourself, what kind of life you want out of this. As I mentioned earlier, as a group of investors, we meet online at the website known as the American Wealth Builders Network.com. And it's a free group. We just meet and we chat there. We share ideas, we share resources there. So I just want to invite you guys to join us over there. I think you'll enjoy it. And certainly you'll learn a lot because there's a lot of free content there and a lot of smart people that I've come to meet through that network. So I just want to invite you guys to do that as well. I'm just going to share with you here. Here's my contact information. If you want to take a look at this, take a picture of it or whatever, you can reach out to me. I do give free 30-minute consultations only because I love talking about this and talking about the opportunity that notes provide and that private lending provides. And so you can reach me there. Also, if you just want to learn more about this kind of stuff, I have a lot of free content on YouTube and also on my website, which is investbrilliantly.com. Tons of free information, hundreds of free videos there that I've put up and talks about all different topics investing in paper, being on the paper side of the business. Okay, so that's what I've got, Brian. And I'm certainly open for questions. If anybody has questions about what it is how this stuff works. But this is good stuff, isn't it, Brian?
Yeah, this is definitely good stuff. It was relatable and you made it very easy to understand. I appreciate you going through those slides. We did have a couple questions here for you, so we'll go ahead and go through those. Let's move over to the next slide. So we have all your contact information there on the screen. Perfect. So if anybody watching has any interest in reaching out to Desi or you have additional questions, this is a great way to reach him. His contact information is right there. There's one question on your first slide you had with the house. And the question is, you purchased the note for $128K, but the balance was $146K. So if they paid off the balance early, will they pay you the $146K or the $128K?
Excellent question. They would have to pay me, Brian, the $146,000. When the mortgage gets transferred, I cannot change any terms of that mortgage, but neither can the borrower. They owe $146,000, so that's what they'd have to pay me. So I would literally put $18,000 into my pocket. If they were to pay me off in 30 days after I bought the note, I'd make $18,000 profit in 30 days. And it happens from time to time, by the way.
All right.
Good question.
Yeah, that was definitely a good question. I was pretty interested in what the answer was for that as well. Okay, we got another question here. And anybody else, listening or watching, you have questions, type them in the Q&A section and I'll go ahead and read those for you to Desi. All right, next question is, what is the minimum amount to start with all three options?
Okay, well, I'll start with being a private lender as a direct lender. When I started lending, my very first loan that I ever made to a rehabber was $5,000. I loaned him money. He needed a little bit more money to finish his project. I've seen even $1,000 private loans as well. So as a direct lender, that amount is all over the place. But I wouldn't do it personally for less than about $5,000, only because you need to make a little money, and if you only lend $1,000, there's just not much in the way of profits dollar-wise. Percentage-wise, yes, but dollar-wise, there's not much in the way of profits. So that's what I would say you want to get started with as a direct lender, Brian. I'd say $5,000. Now, if you're investing in mortgage notes and you're buying a note that's already been originated, there's two categories, and I didn't want to get into that in the slide, but I'll just mention it here. There's two categories, and the amount to get started in each is vastly different. If you're investing in first mortgages, first position mortgages, then you should, in my opinion, you should be looking at about a $30,000 investment at the minimum to get started. Although you can find mortgages for less than $30,000 that you can pick up for less than $30,000, my experience has been that they tend to be in neighborhoods where I wouldn't want the collateral if I had to foreclose. See, I always look at that. What if I wind up with this house? Do I want something in that neighborhood? And if the answer is no, then I won't buy the note. So I'd say $30,000 if you want to buy a mortgage note that's in first position, and about $2,000 if you want to buy a mortgage note that's in second position or third position. And without getting too technical, second mortgages are usually used for things like adding a swimming pool or maybe remodeling a kitchen, that kind of thing. So those are smaller mortgages, and you can buy those for less money, but that'll get you started. And then the third option, as I mentioned before, is investing in a fund. Most funds require a $25,000 minimum investment just to get involved. My fund requires a $50,000 minimum investment. Some funds require $100,000, but I don't see very many that require more than that. But that's the minimum to get going. You could always put in more. So you're looking at anywhere from $1,000, you know, to $100,000 and anywhere in between.
Okay, very interesting. If somebody had like an IRA and cash and they wanted to invest in a fund, but that's the only way they would have enough means to get the minimum buy-in, would they be able to do that?
Yes. Simple answer. Yes. So let's say they got a $25,000 IRA and $25,000 in cash. I look at them holistically. Even though the IRA is putting in $25,000 and the individual is putting in $25,000, I know it's their IRA, and so we give them credit for the entire $50,000. That's how I do it.
Perfect. Okay, so I have two questions, but they're kind of the same. Where would an investor, a beginning investor, find notes that have already been created or originated?
Wow, that's the $6 million question right there. When I got started back in 2013, I had a mentor that was helping me. And this guy owned 400 mortgages on condos right there in Florida where you are. He was a young guy in his 30s. I think he was 33 years old at that time. And he had bought 400 mortgages on condos in Florida. And that's what caught my attention on the 4th of July. I found him on YouTube and I said, whoa, I need to see what this guy's doing. So I was able to reach out to him, and he actually kind of took me under his wing. And what he had me doing when I was starting to invest in mortgages is he had me calling banks. Literally picking up the telephone and calling banks and asking if they have any mortgage notes for sale. Well, things have changed a lot since 2013. Today, you can find notes for sale online. There are websites where people post the notes that they have for sale. And you know, you can get them there. Also, I can mention this too, that my company sells notes as well. If someone wants to buy a note, we sell fully vetted notes, meaning that we've already done all the due diligence. We've already run the title reports. We've already had the real estate agents go out and give us their value. We've already done all the things that we do. We have a 127-point checklist, Brian, that we do before we even buy a note. And so when we sell notes, they're vetted. And so people can buy with confidence. But before anybody, in my opinion, before anybody invests one nickel in a note, they do need to understand the space. You know, I quoted Warren Buffett earlier. He said, invest in what you understand. I fully believe in that. And so I created something called the Note Investor University, and people can find it online, noteinvestoruniversity.com. And I have some video training there. It's a lot of the stuff you can learn on YouTube, except it's organized so that you don't have to be like YouTube. You don't know what to watch first, what to watch second. You know what I mean? So it's information. to help people get through the learning curve quickly so that they can invest in notes. And I just suggest to people, go there, get yourself signed up in the university, and start with a very basic fundamentals class, and then move on from there, whatever direction you want to go, because I talk about different ways to invest in the space. But please don't invest in this or any other asset class if you don't know what you're doing, because all you're going to do is lose sleep. And I'm almost 70 years old. I can tell you life is too short to be losing sleep over a decision to invest money. You should be able to sleep like a baby over your decisions. And if you're not at that point, it's not time for you to pull the trigger. That's just me. Okay.
Yeah, definitely some good advice and some good pointers on, how you can find notes. So like Desi said, don't lend if you don't plan to own. That's something that I've always learned when I research notes. My mom dabbles a little bit in notes with her IRA. And, if you don't plan on ever obtaining that property in case that borrower, can't pay you back, don't lend to that borrower. So you definitely want to vet the property for sure.
Yes. Yeah, you better, because you don't know what you're going to get. I was listening to a story of a person who had purchased a mobile home. Oh, actually, he purchased a mortgage note on a mobile home, and he went to Google and used Google Streets to see the property itself. He didn't pay someone to go out and take a picture. And as it turns out, that mobile home had been pulled off that lot after Google had already taken the picture. And by the time he bought the note and he wasn't collecting payments, he sent someone out finally to the property and realized, my goodness, that mobile home is gone. And so, I do things like I get eyeballs on stuff. That's why I have real estate agents. I paid those guys, go out, even if I don't buy it, I still pay them for going out and giving me their opinion and taking photographs for me. Tell me about the neighborhood. I want to know before I buy that mortgage note. And so that's why I started the university, because in the university, we teach people, this is the stuff you need to look for if you're going to invest in a note. Here's the stuff you want to look for so that you don't lose sleep over your decision. But you're right. You got to think you might own that thing one day.
100% due diligence is definitely something, if you're going to get into notes or any type of investing, you need to learn what that checklist of due diligence looks like so you don't lose sleep over your investments. And, I've had many clients kind of go on a whim without doing research on things before. And, from their experiences, I've learned some takeaways. So, we're telling you this because it's one of the best things you can do is just do your due diligence, even if it's worth paying somebody like Desi mentioned, a real estate agent to go out to the property, take pictures of it, tell you what the neighborhood looks like. It's definitely worth it. You will be able to sleep at night knowing that, hey, I don't mind owning this property if this person doesn't pay me back.
Right. Or you can sleep at night. You can sleep at night. Let me just piggyback on that. You'll sleep at night knowing that you passed on it. I dodged that bullet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point.
Hey, Brian, let me just share this with you briefly. I had a real estate agent go into a house that looked so nice from the curb, right? From the pictures and stuff that I saw. Well, she said when she went inside, the walls were covered. The place was vacant. The walls were covered with mold. She said literally from floor to ceiling, black mold all through that place.
Wow.
I dodged that bullet, right? Because I put eyeballs on it. I had another one that was in Florida, in the Panhandle. It was slipping down the side of a slope. It was apparently on a canyon or something. And from the front, it just looked great. But my agent walked around back and said, whoa. So don't try to take shortcuts, right? You just don't do that, right? I don't like losing money, brother. I'm too old. I don't have time to recover. Right? Yeah. If I lose my money now, I'm done. Toast.
Yeah, no one likes to lose money. So definitely, Desi's giving you some good advice right here. All right. So once again, what's the name of that university website?
It's noteinvestoruniversity.com.
All right. You guys got that. Noteinvestoruniversity.com.
Yeah. And if they head over to, remember I talked about the American Wealth Builders Network. If they join that network, there's a link right in there, right into the university. And joining our network is free. And the only reason that I've promoted it 2 or 3 times here today, Brian, is because I have found that if you surround yourself with like-minded individuals, and you got people to bounce stuff off of, and people can bounce ideas off you, you lessen the chance that you're going to make mistakes. You know what I mean? And so that's why I started that network, and it's free because I want people there. I don't want to charge people money. I want you guys there. I want you sharing your ideas, sharing your experiences, because I learned from that too. And so we've created a pretty nice community there.
Oh, that's awesome. I think I need to go join that group there. No,
Yeah,
I agree 100%. When my mom started getting into notes, I joined some meetup groups all about note investing just so I can learn, because I didn't fully understand it. And just from a couple of meetings, I learned due diligence. I learned how to, the difference between holding the first position versus second position. I learned, you should probably get an attorney to write the note, depending on the state, of course. There's certain caps on percentages you can charge. I even learned that you could if you're using an IRA, you can add the custodial fees in the verbiage of the note so that the borrower pays your custodial fees instead of it coming out of your IRA money or your credit card.
Well, that's a golden nugget right there. I didn't know that myself. Thank you.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
That's a good idea. Yeah, that's a good idea.
All right. So one more question here. Yes, this recording will be posted on all of our social media, and we will send a recording link to anyone that registered or attended. So you'll have that recording that you can share with your friends and family, of course. Desi, thanks again for joining us and providing some great value to, our clients and anybody watching that wants to learn more about note investing. Once again, there's Desi's contact information if you want to reach out to him. He's a great guy, wealth of knowledge. He's a part of a great network of note investors. He could definitely teach you a lot, and he's always happy to take people under his wing and educate. He'll be speaking at our investor retreat in January 6th and 7th. So if you want to come meet Desi live, please come out and join us. You can scan that QR code as well. That'll give you more details on the event. We're really excited. This is a 2-day event. We have lots of great speakers lined up. And anybody that's watching right now, if you want a free ticket, now these tickets are $99. I'm going to give out 10 free tickets right now to the first 10 people that email us at iraspecialists@NuViewTrust.com. So once again, that's iraspecialists@NuViewTrust.com. So first 10 people get free tickets, and there's the email right there for you. You can scan that QR code as well. You can always visit us at NuViewTrust.com if you have any questions specifically about self-directed IRAs or this presentation. I'm happy to talk, or someone on my team can always help as well. Desi, any last words before we go?
Yeah, the last thing I'd like to say is, look, guys, just go for it, first of all, and never stop learning. I can tell you for sure, if you'll pick up on what we've been talking about today, keep learning. It will work for you just like it's worked for me and so many other people before us. So just never stop learning.
Awesome advice. Thanks again, Desi. I appreciate it. Everyone out there, have a wonderful rest of your week, and we hope to see you at our investor retreat in January.
God bless you all.